Hi there, welcome to this tutorial. We're looking at the pattern pieces. Don't forget to make the notches and mark the center of your front parts. A seam allowance of 1 cm is included. Let's start with the bust darts, which I have drawn on the shell fabric as well as on my lining. I'm going to hand baste my darts. And sew them. This tutorial shows you all the sewing steps with lining, but you could totally skip the lining if your fabric is opaque enough. Then I press down. I take my back parts and I finish the edges on the sides. Same for the front parts. I will now sew the back parts together. I lay my back pieces right sides together and I pin. And I sew. I press the seam allowances open. Now I lay my front and my back on top of one another, right sides together for both my lining and shell. And I sew on the sides. I don't know what I did when I cut or sewed my lining, but it looks a bit off, so I trimmed. And at this point, I had decided to already hem the lining, which looking back, I don't think is the best moment to hem because first of all, you really want to try the dress on before hemming. And then second, you want to hem your shell fabric first. And then depending on your shell hem, you want to hem the lining. I'll get back to this at the end of the video, so do not hem anything just yet. All right, now I'll connect my shell and lining together. On the table, I have the shell, right side of the fabric is visible, and then I have the lining, wrong side showing. I insert my shell into my lining, meaning the two layers are right sides touching. Okay, it's very important. I pin at the neckline. I sew respecting 1 cm of seam allowance. I turn inside out. I understitch on the lining. Now I have the armhole bias strips before me. I'm going to press them to create bias tape. I'm going to take one strip and connect the two ends together to create a loop, respecting 1 cm of seam allowance. I press down. So we're going to prepare the armholes by sewing the lining and shell there. You want to sew in the seam allowance. Then I pin a first bias to the armhole. The fabrics are right sides together. Be careful not to pull on the bias tape too much because since bias tape is stretchy, you don't want to stretch it out too much while pinning or sewing. So here both armholes are pinned. I didn't pin the parts that the actual strap up there that ends up on the shoulder because I'll sew it at the end, and I sew respecting 1 cm of seam allowance. And this is the result. I trim my seam allowance. So you want to cut like half of it, be really careful and go slow. Once it's trimmed, I fold the bias in order for it to be inside the armhole, so it's not visible on the right side of the fabric, it's on the lining. I pin. And I top stitch close to the edge. Once the French binding part is done, I can sew my straps. Same thing, I sew close to the edge. Finally, we have the hems. So there is a hem allowance indicated on the pattern, but before just following the hem allowance that I picked, you want to try the dress on, test the hems and pick the one that you prefer. Once you've decided, you can go ahead and finish the edges of both the lining and the shell. For the shell, you make a one fold hem, stitch by hand. And then, depending on this first hem, you hem the lining so that its length goes down to somewhere in the hem allowance of the shell. And that's it, the dress is done. So this dress is one version of 4 summer dresses. It's like the same fit, mini dress, light A-line woven fabric, all slip on, no sophisticated closure system, though it's all the same fit, but variations of the top parts. And it's also going to be sort of easy if you want to shorten them into summer tops. So if you make it, use the hashtag, tag me on social, and that's it. Take care and see you soon for another sewing project. Kiss!